What's up, folks, and welcome back to another live broadcast of the Engadget Podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devindra. This week, I'm joined by Senior Reporter Billy Steele. Hey, Billy.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. And Billy's going to talk with us about stuff from the Apple event. He tried out the AirPods 4. And also podcast producer Ben Ellman is here. Hey, Ben.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really curious about the AirPods 4 being used as actual, FDA-approved hearing aids.
Well, AirPods Pro, not the 4.
That's right. Okay, AirPods
Gotta
Pro.
go Pro for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna be slightly disappointed.
Doesn't quite work that way. Cherlynn will be joining us in a bit. She's running late because I think both you and Cherlynn were literally like flying back home yesterday, right, Billy?
I came home the day before, but
Okay.
I think we had similar after midnight arrival schedules. So
that's the only way to go. It's really hard to get back from the West Coast to the East Coast at like a reasonable time. It's very odd. How are we doing in the chat, folks? I saw some people were hanging out. Simon B, Mark Dell,
Kashan Riaz, Sumi Tang, CUD.
Tumi Sang.
Yeah, Tumi Sang. That's right. Banana Cat Times. Hello.
I promise you, nobody's eating cats or dogs.
Yeah, no,
none of that's happening. All right, folks, we're gonna get to it because I know Billy has restricted time, and also Cherlynn will join us, and we will juggle this. I think Billy, maybe we could just intro segment, and Ben, you can splice it in as if after the beginning or something.
Yeah, why don't we just go straight to the segment, and then we'll do the very top of the show a little bit later on when Cherlynn's on.
So you folks watching the live stream, it's gonna be a little out of order. Just sit tight. Hello, folks. Omega Beats. Ben, can we get names on the videos, by the way, too?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, folks. Billy, go ahead and start your local recording.
Oh, I started a long time ago.
Awesome. Perfect. You're great. Thank you for being on time and recording. And chat, we will take some breaks, and Cherlynn will be back soon. She'll have iPhone thoughts and stuff too. So let me intro this segment.
Yeah, let me just get the sync too. So chat, you know what we're about to do. If you don't, someone will tell you what we're going to do, but we're pressed for time today. So counting down from 3,
just clap.
2, 1, and some silence. I'll let you know when the silence is over. Chat, please thumbs up that stream. Okay, we're done with the silence. Let's get to it.
Okay. I will just throw you right into it, Billy, okay?
Okay.
Joining us to talk about the AirPods 4 and the Apple Watch Series 10 and a bunch of other audio stuff from the Apple event is Billy Steele, Senior Reporter Engadget. Hey, Billy. How's it going?
Doing well. A couple days after the event, finally recovering from the lack of sleep and cross-country travel. But
and the trekking around Apple campus too, which is always fun. Like so much walking between that place. So
yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you get to go because you're our audio guy. So first up, I really want to know, what did you think of the AirPods 4, Billy? And also, what is up with the naming too? AirPods 4 and AirPods 4 with A and C. It feels like this family is getting more confusing.
Yeah, the product names are going to be confusing for people for sure. I'm not sure what a better solution would have been. Unless they would have created a whole new, we've got AirPod or iPad Air and regular iPad and iPad Mini. And, they probably could have gone somewhere in that direction for something a little less confusing. But I think the designs are so similar and the feature sets are pretty similar with the exception of a few features. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it is going to be a bit confusing, but I'm not sure what other direction they could have gone in.
Yeah, it's kind of like a hard spot for Apple, I guess. I mean, it's also been confusing because they've had like the older AirPods for a while, and they've had like the other gens and stuff kind of floating around. So yeah, we just bring it up. I think when things are confusing for consumers, I like to point that out. At least when it comes to price, I guess it's all very clear, right? You have AirPods 4 at $129. The 4s with ANC at $179, Pros, the Pro second gen at $250. But also, we know those Pros come down in price a lot. The AirPods go on sale a lot. So those prices, I guess, are pretty flexible. They're just like a set of ranges that Apple's playing with at this point, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's like they have a new intro model,
Mhm.
and then the ANC is kind of bridging the gap because it has not only active noise cancellation but a few more features. Excuse me, than the most affordable model. And then, of course, you have the AirPods Pro. And like you mentioned, AirPods Pro are regularly available for around $200, maybe less sometimes. They are 2 years old at this point, and I think what Apple has done is set up its product line for new AirPods Pro that are probably coming next year around this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so while the AirPods 4 have some of the handy features from AirPods Pro currently, there will be more differentiation in a year's time or whenever they decide to introduce those. Usually they come alongside new iPhones and new Apple Watches. It's like a trio of products they like to reveal at the same time. But yeah, so right now we have a redesigned intro model. Then we have bridging the gap with the ANC, and then of course the Pro at the top end.
Gotcha. And how do they actually sound? Like Apple's talking about, like they did another set of like image processing to make sure the tips fit more ears. I've always hated the AirPods. Like they just
Yes.
never quite fit in my ears. I was so
Yes.
grateful when the Pros happened. Do these fit better? Do they sound better?
They do fit better. They have revised the shape.
Mhm.
I think if you are kind of looking at them side by side, you may not notice. It's kind of subtle, but you can feel the difference once you have them in your ears. I do think they are more comfortable to wear. They do seal off your ear a little better. Obviously, not completely. You still get the open nature of AirPods. That is not gone. There's no tip here. But yeah, so they, of course, like every earbud company does, they talk about how many ears they've scanned and all the data points and stuff that they use to try to make the fit as universal as possible for as many people as possible. And um, the refined shape does make a difference. And if they were going to introduce ANC, obviously they had to make some changes there for it to be effective. There are numerous open type earbuds with ANC have been on the market for years. And most of the time they don't close off your ear enough to be effective, or the ANC technology inside just isn't as robust as what you would get on another set of earbuds that have a tip. So that shape does make a big difference. And in terms of sound, there's new drivers and a whole new acoustic architecture inside. But the key thing that they did, which is something that's honestly really simple, is they have pointed that driver into your ear directly instead of having it sort of off to the side. If you've seen the third gen AirPods that are a couple years old at this point, it looks like just a speaker sort of on the side of it, like a black speaker. And so there's a little bit of a recessed chamber this time, and that driver is pointed down to your ear. So you get better low end performance and crisper highs and just more fidelity around, because it's coming directly in instead of sort of bouncing off the side of your ear.
That's kind of cool. That's cool. Just want to welcome Cherlynn to the stream. I'm glad you're live, Cherlynn. We were like, what's happening? I will bring you right into this segment too. Cherlynn, do you have any questions about the AirPods 4, I guess? Or also, did you get to try them? Because I'm interested in your perspective too.
I have gotten to try them. And unlike Billy, I actually don't know that I'm a fan of the fit yet. But yeah, I think the pricing is that you all have been talking about is definitely like, wait, what? Yeah, okay, I guess we'll just, I guess Black Friday is on the horizon, right?
They always have sales. Like almost every month we're running like AirPod sales on the site. So, yeah. Billy, like when it comes to, I was interested, like, so the ANC actually works. It actually works even though these aren't sealing off your ears. You feel a noticeable cancellation there?
Yeah. Like I said, on other open type earbuds that I've tried with ANC, minimal to no difference. especially some of the early Samsung models. I think the first one they did that was open with ANC were I don't even remember what they were called, but the ones that look like a bean.
Right.
That just sort of like sat on the outside of your ear.
That concept just like, it breaks my brain a little. Being an open earphone, but also noise canceling. It's like being a convertible car, with like, I don't know, like really, it doesn't make sense, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even more than just like direct ANC performance with Apple, you have things like loud noise detection and things like that are powered by H2 and are using the same microphones that are detecting environmental noise that the ANC system would be blocking out. So it's not, ANC is one piece of the technology that's at work in that model. And so I will say, when the first time I tried it was on the demo floor, which was packed and crazy and chaotic and sort of like a constant roar of everyone talking and stuff like that. And really effective there, canceling out the noise. I was shocked at how well it did. I got another chance to try them with some simulated plane noise. And I didn't think it was as effective then. Of course, that's a different frequency. And
it's like really low range too. You really want physical blockage for that. Yeah.
Right. And so, if you've got over-ear headphones like I'm wearing now that have like 6 or 8 microphones, a lot of times they're more effective with that sort of thing. So I'm not exactly sure how many ANC mics are on the AirPods 4, but maybe that has something to do with it. But either way, it did provide some relief from that simulated noise. That like you say, you're surprised that it would make any impact due to the fact that it's not sealed off your ear completely.
Yeah, that by the way is a great power move. I love to do that when I'm at like a crowded conference or something. Or it's put on your noise canceling headphones and set the suppression like fully on. Like it is a great way to survive in that world. Cherlynn, did you try the noise cancellation stuff on the AirPods 4?
Not at the hands-on.
Not at the hands-on. Okay. I also want to talk about the AirPods Pro because it's interesting. We're not getting a new model this year, but Apple's just like, hey, let's just make the existing product so much better. And that is multiple things, like leaning more into making it more of like a medical and health device. There's going to be hearing aid testing, right? Or hearing tests, I guess is the thing. And also automatic loud noise suppression, which is kind of nice. And the thing I think is going to really be intriguing to a lot of people is just essentially allowing the AirPods Pro to work as a clinical grade, that's their phrase, a hearing aid. And this actually calls back to something we talked about 2 years ago when the Biden administration basically opened up the floodgates and killed the hearing aid monopoly and allowed for over-the-counter hearing aids. So this is a direct line, folks. Like this is what happens when you like deregulate an industry and make things cheaper and more accessible and open. So yeah, your AirPod Pros can be hearing aids. Did they give you any demos for that, Billy?
Yes. So I didn't take the actual test,
okay.
But we got like a simulated test with all the steps were accounted for. And yeah, I mean, it takes like 5 minutes to do the whole thing. It is the smartphone version of the test you took at the audiologist when you were a child, probably, where you sat in the booth and put the headphones on, waved at them when you heard something. In this case, you tap your screen when you hear a tone. It'll do the left and right side. And once you're done, it'll tell you, your performance in each ear, and it will rate, low, mild, moderate, high hearing loss. And so a few things will happen after that. You will, if you have mild to moderate, which is what this feature is designed for, it's not designed for someone with, a huge degree of hearing loss that, needs a clinical grade device in order to give them any degree of hearing recovery. This is for, mild to moderate. So if you meet that criteria, the app or system walkthrough, whatever we want to call it, hearing test, there you go, technical term, will suggest that you enable the hearing aid feature. You can't do it automatically. Unless you, I believe they said there was some way that if you already know you have hearing loss, you can upload your, I can't remember what the term is for the test results from a doctor. But there is like a sort of roundabout way to get to it, or there will be. But the most straightforward way is for the test to determine that you have some degree of hearing loss. So once that's activated, you do have some controls in terms of being able to recognize speech, some frequency recovery options, and there are a couple other things. And then, of course, you do have the ability to turn it off and on. There will be, once you take that test, there will be a little ear icon in Control Center. So where your volume, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth controls, all of that are. One of the squares will be an ear, and that's where all the controls will be. So yeah,
cool.
the most important thing is you do have to get certain results on the test in order to use it. And it is only designed for mild to moderate hearing loss.
That's still like, it's a rare thing for a tech company to do something that is like genuinely helpful to somebody's health, I guess. And we definitely criticize Apple and Google and everybody a lot around this stuff, but it is cool to see it like actually, I don't know, be helpful. Cherlynn, I know you are really into health gadgets that actually help people's lives too. What are your thoughts on that?
I was like, the hearing health thing, the hearing testing came on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was just telling everyone how my hearing's probably shot to pieces. Because there was this video that people posted on Reddit, and I was like listening to it, and it basically is a playback of sound from 0 to like, I don't know, 16,000 kilohertz or something. And most people in the Reddit post were like, oh yeah, it goes to silence for me at 13,000. Oh, I stopped hearing at 14,000. Or some people like stop. A lot of people, they say theirs stops at 16,000. They're saying it's because the phone can't play higher than that.
The phone or like computer speakers, like it really depends how you listen to those videos. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I was listening on my phone. Guess where it stopped for me?
I don't know. 10,000?
It was like way lower than all of them. It was like at 10,000. I was like, maybe I should get my ears checked.
You got to do it. Those things are tricky, right? You have to, if you're watching the YouTube videos, you have to make sure the resolution's all the way up, so you're not getting like super compressed audio. But okay, good to hear.
But basically, my extremely pedestrian testing of the listen to this video had me concerned for my own hearing, right? And I think it was very coincidental, fate. But I think I'll be knocking on Dr. Apple's door soon if I can, and then going to see a real doctor.
It'll be cool for people to think more about like their hearing, I guess, and their health, because I've not had a hearing test since I was an adult. I don't even think when I was a kid I've had like that full like hearing thing. That will be cool. And also like maybe it'll also convince people like maybe I should get my ears actually professionally cleaned, which is a thing we're seeing now on social media. I was like, I have been thinking about that because I love speakers and headphones. I'm like, I should probably clean my ears. Billy, before you leave, I do want to ask you about the AirPods Max and what the hell is happening with those things, because they're still $550. There's a new model with USB-C, different colors. Apparently there's a secret software upgrade they didn't even really talk about. It can do personalized spatial audio, but still running the H1 chip from the older devices, and it's still $550. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one point about the AirPods Pro before we do that. There is a third piece. So there's the test, the hearing aid, and then there is a preventative piece. So you could technically use the AirPods Pro to as hearing protection at like a concert or something like that, where you still want to filter the sound through before now. But the way that I understand it is that sort of hearing protection, loud noise protection is now going to be applied across all listening modes. So they're expanding the existing feature. So if you own a pair and you go to a concert and you hate those foam earplugs, and you don't necessarily like the ones that have filters, I use some from Sennheiser that have different filters. You can use the AirPods Pro, and you should notice some more functionality when the update hits on Monday.
Cool.
In terms of the AirPods Max, yeah, it is. There were rumors that this is what they were going to do, that they were just going to add USB-C and maybe some new colors. I expected them to do that before now, if that was going to be the update. And honestly, I expected it to be a random Monday 10 a.m. news drop type situation that Apple kind of likes to do. But yeah, honestly, there's a new model supposedly coming next year. It will maybe even skip chip generations. If there's going to be an H3 or H2.5 or whatever, ready for AirPods Pro, the next version of AirPods Pro, maybe they'll just go on and do that for the Max so they can add some more technology and just, they're really going to have to wow us at this point with the update, because they did add, I think it was personalized spatial audio that they were able to do with the H1 chip, but you still don't have things like voice isolation that's coming, or the Siri interactions with the head gestures and stuff like that, that is reliant on the H2. So honestly, at this point, it's really hard to recommend those, especially at full price. The new colors, they do look great. I mean, honestly, some of them do look pretty nice, especially compared to the limited options that were there at launch. But
what are the new colors exactly? Because I saw someone on the flight home have like with a non-standard looking AirPods Max color, and I wonder if I'm like, where do they get that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are like third-party options for customizing them, so that may have been it. But there's like a coral, orangey, pink.
Yeah, that's the one I saw.
Purple. There's like it's more of a grayish blue, I think. And then of course they did that thing where the black or the dark gray is now a slightly different shade of black or dark gray. And I think there's like I don't remember if there's like a white or something. There were like 5 new colors, I think. So
that's cool. Good recommendation there, Billy. Like maybe not worth getting these things at the full price, but you will probably, I've seen a lot of refurbished, and I don't know about buying used headphones, but refurbished where they're a little clean and they've done some tech inspection. If those come down below 400, I guess, like then it's maybe worth considering, because then you're in line with other wireless noise canceling headphones like the Sonys that we love so much and stuff, right?
Yeah, that is true. I'm seeing some comments in the chat about colors. There were a few to begin with, but I think there were only 4 or 5, and so Apple loves to do the more colors thing. So
3 years late. What a forgotten device. But the thing is, like, I know people who have bought these AirPods Max and love them, even though they're insanely expensive and not as high fidelity as like getting actual a lot of other stuff. We love the Sonys, the XM5s and everything. So those things are 350, 400.
Yeah, somewhere around there. They go on sale. It seems like every week. And I mean, the AirPods Max, like regular AirPods, there are conveniences if you are an Apple, if your whole life it revolves around Apple products. Seamless device switching, and when you get a call, fast pairing, and the ability to share audio from like an iPad if you're watching a movie with someone, or to use them with Apple TV relatively easily. And I will say that another redeeming factor is the very natural sounding transparency mode that AirPods Pro have, where it is piping in enough of your voice to where you don't feel like you have to shout or anything like that. And so there are some redeeming qualities, but like I said, and like we've mentioned several times, if you can go refurbished or find a deal, if you really feel like you have to have them, just please do not pay full price.
Don't pay full price, folks. There were conversations I had with Apple about testing like the Vision Pro. I'm like, what devices should I use? And it is funny that they kept de-emphasizing the AirPods Max. They're like, we think maybe just the AirPods Pro 2nd generation. Like that's probably going to get you a better experience, because you can wear the Vision Pro with the AirPods Max. It'll be kind of clunky with like extra, ear headbands and stuff, but they're just not really pushing that device. So I guess that makes sense. Any other thoughts from you, Billy, before you have to head out?
Just going back to the AirPods 4,
Mhm.
the differences between the two. I was kind of looking at a table earlier with the direct comparison. And one thing that I will point out is Apple, you may remember that Apple didn't mention any kind of volume slider gesture like that's on the AirPods Pro. That is not there. There is no onboard volume control. Apple suggests that you use Siri, obviously, old reliable Siri, to make your volume changes, or the volume controls on your iPhone, the lock screen volume slider, or the slider that you have to make a few taps to get to in the control center. So that is a big one. And then there are some H2 chip features that aren't available on the normal model that are available on the ANC model. So you'll want to pay careful attention to that when you're trying to decide if that's, which model of AirPods that you want to get in addition to the ANC. So
cool. I guess like a hard choice will be between the AirPods 4 ANC or the AirPods Pro, like because those prices get so similar when they're on sale. So I don't know, folks, test it out if you can. You can always return stuff to the Apple Store, and it's probably the only way to really test those things. All right, Billy Steele, where can we find you on the internet these days?
You can find me on Threads at WM Steele. You can find my grill account on Instagram where
Billy Steele
cooking various smoked meats and all the kitchen and grill smart cooking reviews that I do at Engadget go there. That is at Steele Provisions, Steele with an E on the end, Provisions. And those are the two main places I'm hanging out these days.
Where do we order meats?
Yes, meats.
Mail order is coming July 2028. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you so much, Billy.
Expired meat sounds so good. Yeah.
All right, Billy, you can drop your audio to either me or send it to Ben directly. Just a getaway file, okay?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Enjoy your call.
Later. Hello, chat. We're going to reset a little bit. Hello, Cherlynn is back. Hello.
I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay. We can piece together the show like a jigsaw puzzle. It's all
I spent all 2 weeks just thinking I should not join this week, but I was like, no, but it's the Apple week and the Pixel review week.
This is a good week for you to join, but we'll make it easy. We'll make it easy for you, Cherlynn.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
I will.
No, I was gonna say Solidus T in the chat. Sorry, Solidus T said that $500 is far from your
$550, buddy. $550.
Yeah,
not just $500.
And then I think it was Wes Jackson's who I wanted to shout out. Wes Jackson said a new chip would be good, but what about the bra case and lack of power button? You hate that about
the fact that you can't fold those things either. Like traveling with the AirPods Max is like hell unless you're wearing them.
Yeah. Mark Dell has a very good point, and hi also to everyone. Sorry for not saying. We'll say hi later. Mark Dell says he does like the Max, but almost always wears his AirPods instead, which same. Like I don't have a Max, right? The reason I haven't bought them is I don't wear over-ear headphones as much. So
it's hard when you have to manage your hair and stuff too. But yeah, all right. We will do some Q&A. We'll try to keep this episode nice and tight. But I do want to hear Cherlynn's thoughts about the iPhone.
So what I think we should do is maybe a little bit of Q&A now, or we're just doing that. Then let's just do the top of the whole episode. Straight into
top of the whole episode. I will go into Billy. And then from Billy, we'll do iPhone after, basically. Okay. So, folks, Declan says AirPods Max are $779 Canadian.
Ooh.
I mean, you guys always have like a 20% increase in general, right? Depending on the dollar, but yeah, it's rough.
Mark Dell says he's really eager to try the sleep apnea feature on the watch. Your Samsung Watch said that you had bad sleep apnea, but gave you no useful info. They say the Apple Watch will give you data to share. I can get into this a bit more, but
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, but you will get a bit more info depending. From what I can tell, it's more of like a overtime progression log. It's for people, like my sense is that if you have sleep apnea already, you have sleep apnea already, and you're putting this on, you may not get the results that people who have onset of sleep apnea might get a different alert. So still more to find out there.
It
We'll
may
talk
be
more
more
about
helpful.
that.
It'll be more helpful to the people who have no clue, right? Unless you have
Exactly.
you're sleeping next to somebody who's like, hey, but hey, your breathing stops at night, and that's scary.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
you need somebody to tell you that's happening, because otherwise you'll just
Yeah.
wake up groggy. You'll still wake up, but yeah,
Yeah.
not too great.
Hi to Declan, and then
It's a good question from Quinn Thompson. Doesn't adding buttons to the
Yeah.
iPhone seem reversal? Technically not, but we shall see. We will talk about all that stuff.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I already was writing my like thoughts. My what's this? What's that word? Sorry guys, my brain's not on yet. What's the word for when something may not exist? Theoretical. I'm writing
Theoretical?
my theoretical
Uh-huh.
review in my head.
Mhm.
Don't know if I'm writing a review or not. And it's all about sort of that, Quinn Thompson. So
Mhm.
All right, let's do that real intro.
Let's
And
do the
do we need
intro.
a recap or
Yeah, do you want to resync for her, Ben?
yes, yeah,
All right.
okay. So
Somebody in Mark Dell mentioned that. Thank you for being on top of our audio synchronization. Mark.
yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, I figured Cherlynn was already recording, so I would just
Mhm.
sync it with
yeah, it
something else.
was
But
for
why
the
not?
Billy part.
Why not
yeah.
do it again? So,
Yep.
chat, let's clap again. Counting down from 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's do
Cool.
that real intro.
All right, just sit tight, folks, because we're gonna like just loop around sections here, but you can hear the full audio, and it'll all be in order in the audio version. So
Yep.
download it too. All right, let's go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, internet, and welcome back to the Engadget Podcast. I'm senior editor Devindra Hardawar.
I'm deputy editor Cherlynn Lowe.
Cherlynn sounds unsure about that, but also fair. You are
Barely here.
dead tired.
I'm barely
Cherlynn's
here,
barely
so I'm
here.
saying, yeah.
Cherlynn and Engadget's Billy Steele have survived the iPhone 16 launch event, and they are here to tell the tale. So we'll be talking about the new iPhones and everything. We'll also start with Billy first, because I know he's eager to talk about the new AirPods. As always, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes and drop us an email at podcast@engadget.com. Join us Thursday mornings around 10:45 a.m. Eastern for our live stream. You can see our beautiful faces and have some Q&A time. Sometimes we'll show off gadgets. It's fun time. Let's go to Billy. And I remember how I brought him in, so I think that'll fit. Okay. All right. Thanks to Billy for joining us. Cherlynn, I know you're eager to tell us now about the iPhone 16 and the 16 Pro and everything going on there. I know how much you love the camera button, right? What are they calling now? Camera control. That's the official name.
Can I just, as always, I have stories from the ground to share.
Yes, please.
And
Context.
this is like a professionally embarrassing moment for me in a way that like it was not quite my fault, but like I will take the L. So when they described it during the keynote, I was also, live blogging, so which is basically transcribing, and it's a bit hard to do double duty. But
Yes.
I did get the sense that the camera button we heard from all the rumors and Mark Gurman from our episode a week or two ago was there. But then the way that Apple was describing it during the keynote, I don't know if they ever made it very clear that this was a real button.
Mm-hmm.
And that it depresses, and then there's a force touch capable sensor on the button too, and it's also touch sensitive, so it does all the swipe things, right? I don't know why, but all the people around me and we all thought this was just a solid state sensor button situation.
Well,
because
that's what we've learned to expect from Apple, right? From the trackpads and everything. Those don't physically move anymore. That's haptics.
Right. So we've understood force touch for a while, and they have been built into the trackpad and stuff like that. So it's not a stretch for all of us to think that. And then when I went to the hands-on, when I finally did touch this button, because I was like, oh, does it feel real? Does it feel DSLR-like, right? That was kind of like one of my main things I wanted to find out. The person standing there, the event staff, was also like, oh, it's not a real button. So I was doing my video, and thankfully we recorded the person in the background saying that, because otherwise I'd have no legs to stand on for my argument here. But like, I spent the whole time of my hands-on video, embarrassingly enough, just talking about how it feels like a real button, and to find out like hours after the fact that it was indeed a real button, I was just like, this thing feels so real. Wow.
There's a lot of confusion. Like, I don't blame you, Cherlynn, because Apple is also so weirdly mealy-mouthed about how it's describing things. When they talked about those AirPods, right? They
Yeah.
announced the AirPods 4, and then somebody was like, "Oh, by the way, and there's another
Right.
model," and they spent like
Right.
5 minutes talking about it, and we didn't get a name. And we were
Yeah.
for the longest time writing up these stories, like,
Yeah.
say the name. What is it called?
Yeah.
Just say the thing. And it took
Yeah.
till like the title card with the prices to be like AirPods 4 with A and C. That's the
Yes,
official name.
exactly.
So I think they've been
Exactly.
really loose. Like they were really loose on specifics too. They kept talking about like longest
Yeah.
battery life ever, but wouldn't say the thing
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
if the presentation was like really open and maybe those things weren't fully
Yeah.
baked yet. Yeah.
The keynote tends to be like that, right? It tends to be light on details, but they could have structured it more clearly. They could have done the like, when we make videos, we also make like title cards. We make sure to call out the name earlier on so people don't get confused. Apple's like doesn't have to do that. But anyway, back to the camera control. So this is a real button. Okay. And by the way, shout out to the person who questioned my sanity on Threads only to be corrected by Nilay Patel and David Imel after refusing to believe me, which is really nice to see. But what is done by the force sensor is the half step. And so when you push sort of halfway down into the camera control, you're supposed to be able to do things like select which mode you want to go into or go back out of that sub menu screen. But then fully pressing down not only launches the camera app, it'll also trigger the photo or video to be taken. And it can be a little confusing at first because you don't know quite the difference, like what's going on. But instead of thinking of it as like a light press versus a full press, think of it as a real press versus a force touch press. I think that's the way it's made a bit more sense.
Like camera, like an actual camera does too. You often have the half step press where you're focusing and then you click in deeper for it to take the picture. So I guess that's what they're going for. Yeah.
In my mind, it's like for the phone, and because of the confusion going on over the realness of this button, like pushing all the way down as a real button is what does the camera capture things, whereas the like force touch thing, because on a DSLR when I do the half press, it still goes down. It's still like a real like movement. Whereas this, anyway, I'm like pretty over debating this, but I just want to explain like, what's going on.
Final thing, it is both a haptic button and a real button. It is both.
Exactly.
It's not just one or the other. Yeah.
Exactly. So what it does basically when you're in the camera app, so from any screen, if you press this, it brings up the camera app, right? And then when you go on to use it by, force touch pressing it, it'll pull up 6 modes that you can choose from by force touch pressing some more. Something feels weird about saying force touch press, but I'm going to move on. And the 6 are zoom, in not the correct order, zoom, exposure, camera control, depth, as well as photographic styles and tone. So I spent the most time, I would expect people to spend the most time in things like zoom, camera switching, even though you can do camera switching on screen. And then also perhaps like exposure, right? If you really wanted to do photographic style changing, I feel like people would do that like there would be more hands-on as opposed to using like a dial, like a slider control. But anyway,
it depends.
And then once you've scrolled over by swiping, scroll over to whatever you want to select, you force touch press it, and then it'll bring up the like 0 to whatever as a spectrum for you to then use your finger to swipe through and select. I thought this worked really well for me in the hands-on area, and I thought it was very responsive. Worked pretty nicely when I was holding the camera or the phone up in landscape. However, when we went to use it in portrait mode and try to use it as a selfie, I definitely struggled a bit because I was like, where is the button? Where is it? And it was like higher up than I expected it to be, and so I had to adjust it a little bit, which can cause some like delay in when you're trying to
in that case, isn't it easier just to use the lower, like to do the typical selfie touch?
And you're allowed to do that. You know what else works? The volume down button can still work. Like, it still works.
Yeah. That's cool. Couple of things I want to point out here. I've read from a lot of our coverage that also this button is not just the camera button, right? Other camera apps can do other interesting things with it. So I know Snap, apparently you can like choose who you're going to send your Snap to through using the camera control button, and that's kind of cool that other apps have the ability to just change the way that they work thanks to the addition of a new button. So I see folks in the chat mentioning like more buttons. That seems very anti-Apple, sort of, I guess, because we got a new button last year. And I think that button is a lot less useful than this one, because now the action button can be anything. It doesn't just have to be the camera wake up button. It can be your do not disturb or mute button or whatever, or flashlight. I guess the multifunctionality of these things is just really cool. Makes these devices a lot more useful to people. Yeah.
I gotta say too, like I don't know how much more multifunctional it is. I think that the ability for third parties to change what it does is limited to if they're a camera first app, or if there's a camera component in their app, so it's still tied to that.
Yeah.
But the discourse that I saw around this that made the most sense, and I want to double back to a little bit more about how the sensor works. So like just very quickly as an aside, like I found it unintuitive that the movement of my finger, the way it corresponds with the movement of the slider on screen, is not the way it usually does for me in my head. Like I'm one of those reverse game controller player type people. So this just didn't make a lot of sense for me. And you can't change the direction it goes, but you can change, apparently, according to the person on staff, who I now don't really believe.
Who didn't actually know their stuff.
So, yeah. He was like, oh yeah, you can change the pressure, but you can't change the direction, like the amount of pressure it would need. So there's some customizability there. But anyway, the discourse that I saw online afterwards, that made more sense to me, is that Apple seems to have figured out that people actually need a better camera shortcut than the on-screen bottom right one. That was also, by the way, changed in iOS 18 to allow you more customizability, so that bottom right corner shortcut on your lock screen can now go and be anything, right? With the camera control, basically what Apple's done is the double click shortcut on a lot of Android phones on either the power button or the down button. And they've just made it into a single button, right? I believe Apple never had that double click of any of the power button or volume button shortcut to trigger the camera. Instead, they've brought correct. So they've brought this camera control. And I mean, do we think the implementation is better than Android in this case, right? Like it remains to be seen for me, because I need to do some more testing.
There are Android cameras that have actual shutter buttons and stuff. We mentioned that, like some Sony cameras used to have that too back in the day. But what is the current? It's still, you can use the volume buttons, I guess, right?
On any Android phone, you can either use the double click of the power button. Some phones have it as the volume down as the double click. But yeah, you always have had, actually for years and years, you've been able to like do double click of a hardware key to trigger the camera. So but camera control aside, plenty more new things with the iPhone 16 series.
Are they? Really?
Yeah. So let's talk about this base 16s, because I think we feel across the board the base 16s are a pretty significant update from the last base models, the 15 and 15 plus.
Yeah, mainly because they're getting a new chip, whereas the 15 and the 14 got the leftover chips from the previous year.
Yes.
So
right.
That's something.
So they're jumping 2 generations with the chip. Yeah. They're moving from, I believe, a 16 to a 18. And then for the iPhone Pros, they've gone from the A17 Bionic to an A18 Pro, which is annoying to me because I kept saying Bionic throughout my hands-on article and the video. So apologies for its brain deadness. But they have new chips. The base iPhones now have the stacked camera array, the vertically aligned one, so you can now shoot spatial video if you want. They're also, again, for the first time, they have the action button now, so they have all the like button feature parity to the iPhone 16 Pros. I just think that the fact that there's so much more on par, right, with the 16 Pros in terms of the features you get and don't get.
You actually get the camera control on the base model. That's kind of last year they did not do that, you know?
Right. You're not behind as much anymore. I think some of the main differences, if you really want to lay them out, are the screen, right? The screen is not ProMotion. It's not nearly as nice as the Pro models. The USB transfer speeds on the base models are still a little bit slower compared to the Pros. I think there are slight differences in terms of the battery size. They have like improvements to their cameras as well, even though what they're missing from the Pros is mostly the telephoto and the macro, even though they do still do some sort of macro.
Yeah,
it's all like very nitty gritty now, right? What we're seeing. I've also learned that the voice memo multi-track layering feature that I was extremely hyped for is not coming to the base models. However, audio mix, which is that feature where in a video you can afterwards make the voices sound like they're either in the studio or you want to focus people in frame only. That feature is available across the iPhone 16 lineup, so both pros and non-pros. It's interesting to me. I think it's going to be a little bit confusing for people to discern what features they are and aren't getting, but it is just fewer than ever before, and that's really nice to see.
I think the take, and I wrote a piece mainly like, hey, the vanilla iPhone is actually pretty good this year, and maybe you don't even need to consider the Pro. I know for my purposes, I love promotion and the zoom, like all those things are helpful, but I think for the mainstream consumer who's not even aware of like all these differences, like it's just a better phone for mainstream users, and I can't help but feel good about that. Like that feels like a major step forward. Whereas,
even with among the two pros, the smaller Pro and the larger Pro are essentially the same now, right?
Love it.
Last year, I had to switch over to an iPhone 15 Pro Max because I wanted the 5x telephoto.
Same.
And the body was small enough that I could just light enough, not small enough. The body was light enough that I could be like, all right, I'll trade over. It's
Last
fine,
year we got titanium, and that was like the big thing that brought me over to the big phone too. Yeah.
This year, I no longer have to put up with a bigger phone. I was like, thinking in my head what I should do. Should I switch over to the 16 Pro Max or the 16 Pro? And I was like, wait a second. I don't have to go for the Pro Max for no reason. I can stick to the 16 Pro and have essentially the same experience, but in a size friendlier for my hands because I can stretch and like when I game one-handed, I can hit all the Match Factory toys now. It's great. But they do have larger screens, both the Pro models. They just have thinner bezels to accommodate. And there's some I learned a little bit about the geekery behind what went into like the component and the display changes so that they were able to like push things around, move things around, and make that bezel even smaller. But anyway, because they were able to make the bezels even smaller, we now got 6.3 and 6.9 inch screens.
Like 0.2 millimeters bigger.
Right.
Slightly bigger.
I don't know if it's a huge difference.
I'm looking at my Pro Max right now. I was like, where's the bezel? There's like nothing much left to shave off.
Yeah, it's not much left. I mean, I don't think it's that huge of a difference. I will say that when I picked up one at the hands-on area, I got it. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
but
small phones. Back to small phones.
I think it was the bright lights too.
So you want to go back to the small phone. Interestingly, I think because of the titanium change, like I am perfectly fine with the Pro Max now. I used to think the Pro Maxes were bad phones because they were so heavy. They were half a pound of a brick in your pocket. Just did not make sense to me. Just didn't quite work.
I was tempted to stick with the Pro Max. I think that there are going to be benefits that I will miss. Like I'm pretty sure it will have better battery life. Like I think one of the issues between the Pro Max and the Pro in the past has been that the Pro Max lasts longer. The Pro doesn't necessarily last quite long. But I think I'll have to spend some time to figure out. I just still prefer a smaller size phone.
I feel you. And now you have all the features. Now you have the full zoom. You have everything. It is funny that we're spending so much time. We're talking about a camera button. We're talking about other hardware changes. What about these are iPhones built expressly for Apple Intelligence, Cherlynn. What about Apple Intelligence? Why isn't everybody shouting, "Give me Apple Intelligence" in the streets?
I don't know.
I guess.
Well, have you been trying the dev beta? Have you been working on
I have. So
have you enjoyed getting Apple Intelligence?
I like the features. I like the new Siri. I like the like text suggestions and stuff. Like I really like the notification grouping to really cut down the mess of notifications. That stuff, great. But I also don't think people are going to buy a new phone just for that. That's more like a nice to have thing. And also a lot of those features will not be there at launch. They're going to come a couple weeks later. All the new Siri stuff isn't coming till like early next year. So it also feels really amorphous and confusing. And that to me feels really un-Apple. Like it's not really cooked.
That's quite unlike Apple to be not ready at launch.
Yeah.
It's absolutely unlike them. They tend to, I think, and this is part of what I was going to write in my head for my review. I was pre-writing a review. And I think that because Apple is so disliking, they hate it so much when they have to reverse a decision or change something after the fact. That's why they're so cautious about any sort of big change. And therefore, for them to be this way about Apple Intelligence, they're for sure waiting till they know they don't need to make any more tweaks, right? Because they did have to walk back some changes in the new Photos app. They did walk back some things around like the AirTags, for example, was a huge fiasco for them, right? I think there's they're waiting and seeing. They're watching it. They don't want to make a move like that anymore. But which is resulting in therefore this sort of strange situation where I wouldn't say it's half baked. I would just say it's just not ready
literally
to be served.
not cooked. It's literally not cooked.
I think
So,
it's like cooking, but it's like now broiling. They're like giving it a glaze or something. You know what I mean? Like
you're getting your
there.
features like a set meal. Like okay,
You're right, exactly. The combo
here's the
is
next
missing
one.
the Coke and fries.
Yeah. We're waiting for the final serving, I guess.
Yeah.
It is weird.
I'm trying to think if any other like Apple or iPhone 16 feature jumped out at me. I think 4K 120p slow-mo is interesting.
Sure.
I think
If
a
you're
lot
the
of
weekend,
video...
it's very interesting. But I don't know about normal people.
I think it's interesting because like I just think it as a total package of features, the video recording features, like the audio. I was extremely impressed by audio mix, and I think 4K 120p is fun if you have the space to store those files. You're probably not going to shoot a lot of them.
That's how they sell you the terabyte iPhone sizes, by the way, too. If you
and iCloud storage.
Yeah.
The thing that for me was thematically what I saw across the board was it seems like Apple focused a lot on audio this year. Like you have the new studio mics on the iPhone 16 Pros. And then we'll get to the watch in a bit, but you have a better speaker on the Apple Watch Series 10 now. And then you can also get the audio mix feature. There's a lot of like attention to sound outside of the AirPods product that I thought was interesting. I think there's a lot of complaints around Android in the past, when there was all these attention given to like codecs and like what was it, aptX? There was like a Bluetooth thing that Qualcomm was pushing. Was Snapdragon Sound, I think, was a thing they called it, but
there are multiple versions, but yeah, aptX was one of those things.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like people paid it. I remember back in the day when there was like an Honor phone or a Huawei phone that was like, oh no, sorry, the ZTE Axon was all about sound for a second there. And I was like, wow, good for you.
Everybody had their own. Sony has their own like LDAC or LDAP. Was their whole like everybody has their own thing. It's also dumb.
So it's nice to see. I mean, I think it's just, to me, it sounds like this year there's been a lot of attention paid to audio. But a lot of these things were based on my hands-on impressions or what I learned from Keynote, which, as we have learned so far, may not be the most reliable information or most complete. So I think give it like what is it? They go on sale next week, September 20th. I would wait until around then to get like a more complete picture.
Sure. One thing I see people bring up in the chat, it is weird that the base iPhone is still a 60 hertz screen. When pretty much every Android phone at that price range and below are going, 120 hertz.
90 at least, if not 120.
90 at least. Yeah. And that does make a difference when you're doom scrolling. Like it does, everything does look a little smoother. So I will give that.
I will point out, I think one thing that holds back the base iPhone model, and maybe it's the one thing that distinguishes the two now, is this display is pretty bad. Like not pretty bad, but like specs wise, it's not great on the base iPhone 16, especially when you're competing with the likes of the A series Pixel phone even has a 90 hertz screen. So yeah,
that's fair.
But you know what I was feeling whelmed/underwhelmed by this whole presentation, Devindra? This is the 10th anniversary of the Apple Watch.
Yes.
And I don't feel like there was a lot of fanfare around the Apple Watch Series 10. Like not to like
it is the most interesting device of this event to me. Anyway.
And really,
they didn't really celebrate it. Like just looking from the sidelines here, like the thing that had the most changes, that was, I think, honestly, the most compelling immediately. Apple Intelligence is cool, but that stuff we won't fully get to touch for a while now. But the Apple Watch has basically had the same design since the Series 4, and it's slowly gotten a little bigger, has had new features, but now, like, I don't know, I feel like it's fully cooked in a way. You are right, though. They didn't like fully celebrate. Right. They didn't like really make this should have felt like a combination Apple Watch and iPhone event, to be honest.
It was, and so setting aside the fact that we didn't get all the rumor models we thought we were going to, like a new SE or a new Ultra, fine. Give the Series 10 its own stage, its own time to shine, right? Then give me a lot more, I guess, or like celebrate it a little bit. They did do that video like they always do, and they opened the keynote with the Series 10, and they were like, oh yeah, it continues to save lives, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know that there's that many changes. So, okay, so from what myself understand, right, is the slight changes in size, which I think is a huge deal, especially on a watch that's this thin. So you've got like a 10% reduction in thickness. We will talk about the Pixel Watch 3 review in a little bit, I'm sure, but like the Pixel Watch 3 that I reviewed and published this week, it is 12.3 millimeters, and like compared to the Apple Watch, which Series 9 was like closer to 10, and the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 was like closer to 9.3.
Yeah.
The Pixel Watch 3 definitely felt a lot more chunky for me. So when I got to pick up the Apple Watch Series 10 at the event, I definitely felt like it looked like a squished out pancake. Like it's if you imagine like a mahjong tile size little like Madeleine or like little pastry thing. I know mine went straight to food, right? But it was, compared to my Series 9, it just felt like someone just squished out the Play-Doh a little bit, just squished it out a little bit, and it was like a slightly thinner, slightly like squatter.
It looks so thin, compared to all these.
It feels like a biscuit sometimes when I think about. Am I hungry?
You're hungry.
Maybe I'm hungry.
I think Cherlynn just woke up and jumped on the stream and did not eat anything today. I'm sorry.
No, I did not. I haven't, and I won't be able to until maybe like 3.
Yeah,
but
it does to me. Like the design itself, like when they showed the side angles, I was like, ooh, because I do have a Series 4
that's because of those ultra wide OLEDs, right?
Yeah,
The OLED with the wider viewing angles, so you can see that they're a bit more bright, and even the contrast ratios are better even when viewed at angles of up to like 60 degrees. When I did this a bit side by side during the event, and one thing I noticed was, yes, there's noticeable, not hugely noticeable, like I had to be like on the lookout for it, but like noticeable increase in like brightness and contrast ratios, and then better contrast ratios. And then there's some screenness, like real estate improvements. The screen is a little bit bigger. However, if you're looking at the watch dead on, someone in my like circle around the briefing time brought up that the bezels look bigger, and they do at certain angles. So it is kind of strange that we're going back to this like slightly outdated vibe of thicker bezels than ever. But I think the greater screen space as well as the thinner body make a difference. Also, another thing that Apple tends to do when it improves or iterates on the Apple Watch is to improve charging speed. And I think this is a huge deal with the Apple Watch Series 10. You're able to get to like 80% now in a lot less time. And this is because they were able to like change up the body a little bit. They were able to like bring down, they like combine the 2 bottom layers where the antenna is supposed to be like 2 layers into one now.
Right,
and so the charging coil is also a bit better. Yeah, just
I don't know.
I'm
just looking at it. I'm looking at it. I'm like, iPhones did not really change much. We got a new button. Fine. We have a chip for Apple Intelligence. Could be good eventually, but new watch looks just.
Don't forget that speaker on the watch, where if you really want to play something out for someone now.
I don't like that because we have fully broken all social contracts. Once people could start doing speakerphones everywhere, started with a lot of folks doing that, especially older folks, and now it's just like music everywhere, videos out loud. Nobody has headphones or won't wear them, so I'm not looking forward to that, Cherlynn. But I think wearing this watch, I just want to play with it. One thing I want to point out, because I see people talking about the iPhone SE in the chat, by the way, warning. Do not buy the iPhone SE. It's 3 years old. It's 2 years old, but it's running a 3-year-old chip. It is still $479. That is pure insanity. Apple has not like lowered that price. I think there may have been sales, even on sale. It's the old iPhone design with the home button. Do not get that phone again. Spend a little more. Do your carrier payment plan or whatever. The base iPhone will serve you much better.
Yeah. I want to point out what Wes Jackson and Solidus T are saying in the chat. Wes Jackson says that they had ordered the aluminum watch Series 10, but that you like the look of titanium. And Devindra, you had replied saying titanium is more about weight. I mean, the fact that the price differential is huge is the thing,
It's
but
like
there are some new
more.
finishes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are some new finishes for these watches too, like the jet black. And then the Watch Ultra 2 comes in a black case now, which, by the way, just looks a lot nicer. I think I wasn't as impressed with the Series 10's black color option because it just looks like it's a pebble now. But with the Ultra, because for the Series 10, right, the watch takes up so much of it, and the watch when dead is also black. So it's like black on black. It looks like not a lot of difference. The Apple Watch Ultra, however, because it used to be, it's so much more case. right? It's like, so when the case is changed to a different color, you notice it more. So I definitely prefer the black version of the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And then I also want to say that so Wes Jackson was saying that like opting for a titanium Series 10 puts you in about the Watch Ultra's price range, which is true. It's pretty expensive. Solid as T said Apple Watch ringtones will haunt everyone.
It's not going to be great. That actually points to a question, an email we got from Daniel R. in Auckland, New Zealand. They're saying that they're about to upgrade their Apple Watch and is having a tough choice choosing between the Series 10 and the Ultra 2. They'll need to get it the S10 in titanium for the durability that provides and the larger size, so that gets the price almost to the same as the Ultra 2. He lives in a country where he doesn't have Apple stores to try them on, and he wanted to order this week. If you're not using the outdoorsy features of the Ultra 2, its benefits are primarily battery life and brightness and the action button, which they'd map to the flashlight feature. What else to consider? Cherlynn, how did you like the S10 look and feel? Which would you go for and why? What thoughts, Cherlynn? Like, what would be your recommendation? Or would you ask more questions? Like, how much are you outside? How much outdoors?
Yeah. I mean, so when you say the more outdoorsy features of the Ultra 2, are you talking about the hiking, the depth, the sport related ones?
All that stuff. Like that's why you buy that particular.
Yeah. So if you're a special purpose use case type of person where it is for endurance running, it is for like hiking in like very remote places where the emergency siren on a much louder speaker would help. A lot of the other features you do get on a like Series 10 or Series 9, like you get that like night vision-y watch face with all the red numerals, and then the screen brightness isn't really as like up to the 3000 I believe of the Apple Watch Ultra. It's only like it's definitely not as much. I will say the Apple Watches have gotten to a point where they're so good at their durability. The new finish, especially the titanium finish that you're considering, is really good. That like you don't miss much by opting for a Series 10. So unless you're like looking for that, and also like the battery life, like Devindra said, the extra day
that was in their email, so they're all thinking about that. So
you have considered all of these things, but I will say, hey, for the look and feel, it is, like I said, a squishy little pancake. I personally go for the S10 Series 10 because I just don't like the bulk of the Apple Watch.
Do you want a squishy pancake, or do you want like a watch that can beat somebody to death? Like if you were in a
full-on mahjong tile. A full-on mahjong tile.
If you were in a knife fight with the Apple Watch Ultra, I'm pretty sure you could deflect a blade with that thing and keep going, like use it as a counterattack move.
It could save your life that way.
So my question to Daniel would be, how active are you? How outdoorsy are you? If you're outdoorsy, the Ultra makes more sense. But if you're like me and you're like the walk to the coffee shop is your outdoorsy element, maybe get the Series 10.
And I also will say that if your primary considerations, like you mentioned, were battery life and brightness and the action button, well, I would just like to point out that I think battery life might be mitigated in the Series 10 due to the faster charging speed. So if you just don't want to carry a cable at all, yes, the Watch Ultra. But like if you're keeping it and you might charge it every now and then, the Apple Watch Series 10 is going to charge a lot faster, in my opinion, because I noticed it made a big improvement whenever Apple last did it. I'm pointing at where my Apple Watch charger is sitting.
Is it Qi 2? Because I know the phones do Qi 2. I don't know about
the phones are. I don't believe the watch is.
Okay. But in general, Qi 2 also means faster voltage. So there's faster wireless charging on the new iPhones. Similar concept here on the Apple Watch, just not quite Qi. I don't know. I'm intrigued by this thing, but I'm also thinking, I really like my titanium iPhone. I'm like, is it worth paying almost the price of another Apple Watch, an extra $300 to get titanium? And I'll want the bigger size. And then I'm like, it's $650. I'll just wait. Maybe, when do you think like there will actually be Apple Intelligence stuff within the Apple Watch, Cherlynn? Because that's going to take a couple chip revisions, right?
Yeah, so I don't know about on device. I do think that if it comes through the health app, for example, or the fitness app, then you're quite likely already going to get them maybe even in the next year. The way Fitbit has, adapted AI into its app for like customized health insights, or like here's a customized AI-based, AI-generated custom run workout for you. I think that wouldn't be too far off. On device processing for Apple Watch seems like further away.
It's one of those things. It will certainly be coming from your phone for a while. Anything else you want to mention about the Apple event, Cherlynn? Like, you're back. Hopefully you'll get food.
Specifically, yeah. The matcha cookies are on point as always. The bathrooms were very clean. However, I don't like that, for the most part, I spent time in what's known as a visitor center. So you're using the same bathroom that people who are not, who just like dropped off from the tour bus are also going to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you did get to try out the Hobbit hole. How was that? The Apple
I did visit the observatory. It was beautiful.
Okay.
A lot of light, and it's very similar to a lot of other parts of Apple Park, the Steve Jobs Theater. If you've been there, Devindra, you remember how once they closed off the main Steve Jobs Theater outside area, they put up this giant steel curved wall, and it just adds to the general drama of the architecture. There was a lot of similarity in in parts of the observatory space that were like that. There was a lot of huge sweeping curves, and then when we went into the briefing area, it was like an open, but almost like a greenhouse, because it was so bright.
Hobbit size. That is a Hobbit hole. You should have Hobbit.
It looks like a Hobbit hole, but it's human size, I promise you, because there's plenty of space in there. The what you do see, that visor looking thing, is just that outdoor deck.
Oh yeah,
and it really kind of hides what else is behind it really well. I couldn't get a sense
have a full-on bunker
it
in its base. Like, who knows what's happening underground? We
know,
have driven through the parking lot, and that alone is like, you're going down. You're going down. So
the Severance style.
How far down? Yeah, how far down does Apple go? We shall see. One day.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a break. Can you guys do some Q&A? I'm going to run to the bathroom, and we'll just blow through news real quick.
Okay.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm talking directly to you.
Can we get a better cap on?
Sure.
Yeah, I can.
You do.
Yeah, sure. You do it.
Yeah. So if you all want to get more of these sorts of fun little details about the event, you can come over to the Engadget socials, like the Instagram or TikTok accounts. I also made a video walking to the observatory on my own TikTok. I didn't tag Engadget for that one because I wasn't quite sure. It wasn't super tech-centric. Anyway, you can find all of that good stuff at Engadget on Instagram, or at Cherlynn Instagram on Instagram as well. And then, send us all your questions about the iPhone 16s, the AirPods 4, Apple Watch Series 10, because I want to know what you're thinking before I head into review season.
Podcast at Engadget.com.
Oh, yeah. Send them to podcast@engadget.com.
Yay.
Thank you. Okay. So Declan says, do you need to take your shoes off? I wish. No, you don't need to take your shoes off and have hairy feet to walk around the Hobbit hole. Solid as T, probably the Apple car Cyborg R&D is underground. Want to say hi to everyone that joined. LJS, Mark Dell, Declan, Quinn Thompson. I think we saw Paradise earlier. Anyway, Tumi Sang says, what product were you most excited about? I don't know. I think I spent most of it confused about the camera button. I'm extremely excited about this voice memo multi-track layering feature, honestly, because I'm the person that in the past I would sing and record my singing, and I'd have the backing track played out of a speaker in my living room while I sang. So if I could just do all of that through my phone, that would be really nice. Mark Dell rightly points out there's a PS5 Pro coming, and Mark Dell says, am I getting it? I'm like, what do you think, Mark? I don't know.
Also, it is wild expensive, and we're going to be talking about that during other news.
We have to speed right through other news, because I know I was late myself, but I have a meeting in 2 minutes.
We can do
it very quickly. We've got Solidus T saying Apple Intelligence isn't really doing anything Siri couldn't do already. Network integrated AI. Everyone said that, including Mark Gurman said that Apple was basically releasing kind of like half-baked AI stuff, which is surprisingly spicy.
Well, for now, it does a lot more than what Siri does right now. Like, being able to naturally be like, hey, Siri, do this thing, but also, change it. Natural language stuff is super helpful.
And the really frustrating thing is that this is what people expected from Siri, like, as of 2015 or something.
I saw someone say that
10 years late. And I'm saying in general, like, all of this, like, transformer model powered stuff has only come up in the last 2 years, and we were hoping that this was going to be the case about 10 years ago.
Ben Chad is saying, who's that mysterious voice? should show yourself a
yeah,
little bit.
I gotta
Just a
show
little bit. We'll
myself.
switch over back soon.
Chad also says that they're excited for an iPad mini, and Mark that wants an iPad mini Pro. Parker 128 said you thought it was only you that was confused by the camera button. It felt too complicated when watching. Thank you for validating the confusion that I felt.
Hello,
but
Carlos.
yeah, do you
I'm
mind
the
if we
curious
move on
boy.
because I am going to be late to a meeting?
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to
Let's
other
go.
news.
Let's
Thank
get
you.
to other news, folks. Thank you all for joining us, and just sit tight. We've got a lot of stuff. Okay. Let's move on to some other news, and we'll be moving through this quickly because we had so much Apple chat.
Mhm.
But Huawei did announce their trifold folding phone. It is $2,800. Thoughts, Cherlynn? Like this unfolds sort of like a pamphlet, right?
Yes, my thoughts are that I can't believe they're making this to sell now because I've seen so many iterations of this in prototype form, and I guess we're now ready for someone to be selling these. So yeah, wow.
Yeah,
what would you use it for?
I mean, it also looks like it would be really. I guess it would be smartphone tall if you had like the full
right.
fold,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I cannot imagine this would be super durable. Like this is a cool
Right.
concept. This feels like the Galaxy Fold 1,
Exactly.
where it's a concept they're releasing.
Exactly.
God bless anybody who buys this thing because you're just throwing $3,000 at Huawei basically. So yeah, it exists. Also in other news, we saw some really interesting AI moves this week too. Following the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, Taylor Swift announced that she will be endorsing Kamala Harris, but specifically in her Instagram post, like she mentioned specifically that, hey, they noticed those AI, pictures that the Trump campaign was making, and to sort of counteract that, and to counteract that with truth, she has to have a real commitment. So that partially led her to make this public demonstration of support for Kamala Harris, but also it's a response to AI, isn't it? I think that's interesting.
I don't know that necessarily the Trump campaign made those images, but they definitely posted them and was like, Trump was like, oh yeah. It said something like Taylor Swift wants Trump, and then Trump responded something like,
well, it's like Taylor Swift
I'll
wants you to vote
accept
for Trump. Yeah.
He said, I'll accept as his Truth Social post. I've been following this discourse very long because I've been lurking in all the Taylor Swift subreddits, and they've been waiting for her to make a statement like this for a very long time. I think the conversation in my mind was about her timing, and the AI bit of it is, I mean, she should have addressed it a long time ago, but it does seem to have, fueled her need to kind of say something.
It's a doubly pronged statement because it is a show support for Kamala Harris, but also like, hey, this AI stuff is really gross, and she is not a fan, and she joins many other artists who are, basically staking their ground against these AI images and whatnot. So that's interesting. Also related to the debate, to immediately after Kamala Harris performed really well, I would say, the conservative, a lot of conservatives online started coming up with these conspiracy theories. Oh my God, her earrings, which are beautiful pearl earrings, it seems, they're actually secret earpieces. That must be how she's doing so well. It couldn't be that she prepared for the thing and she's good at her job. But yeah, they were saying it's the Nova H1 audio earrings. We wrote this up and just poked a lot of holes in that conspiracy because those earrings don't even exist really. It was a Kickstarter campaign that never really shipped their product. And also people immediately pointed to them being like actual earrings, like very expensive earrings. So yeah, just funny that would happen. Would you want earrings, Cherlynn, that could work as headphones for you? Are you an earring
in theory
person?
yes, but I know I love the headline that we had with this story.
It's a great headline. It's a great,
like
debunking the conspiracy and not spreading the conspiracy, which not everybody did. Some people were like, was Kamala Harris wearing microphone earpieces? No, we know it's not. You shouldn't even like play with that, really. In more gadgety news, Sony revealed the PS5 Pro in a 9-minute live stream. Sony's Mark Cerny was just like, hey, here's a faster PlayStation 5, has a more powerful GPU, has much more powerful ray tracing support, better memory bandwidth, and a lot of things. It's a more powerful PlayStation 4 5, basically. It is $700. I think some people will be into that, but I do find that to be really wild. The PlayStation 5 came out I guess 4 years ago at this point, came out in late 2020. It feels like we keep saying it feels like this generation of consoles barely even began because they were delayed by the pandemic early on. And even now, I'm like, there are some good games there, but I don't know if they need this boost in performance. I'm sure somebody will buy it. Certainly, I don't know. Cherlynn, any interest in the PS5 Pro?
No. Very simple. No, I just don't have the room for a console at this point in my life. So
You have a room
it's not the
for a
PlayStation's
Switch.
fault.
Yeah,
I do have a Switch. Yeah, so
it is a big boy. It also doesn't have a disk drive, so you're spending $700 for a thing without a disk drive. You can buy an additional disk drive for it.
Someone on Threads, I think, asked the question of when was the last time you used put a disc into your PlayStation, and I just to troll replied no, and then or have you ever in the last 5 years? I think that was the question, yes or no, and then I replied no to see the answers, and it was like 25% no, and then like 75% yes. So like a lot of people are still using a disk drive, which surprised me actually.
It's I mean, if you do the was it the 4K Blu-ray stuff with it, that works pretty well. I use it a lot for 4K Blu-rays, but not again, that's a really niche format that basically nobody buys. So I can see why they gave up on that. This thing also has 2 terabytes of SSD space, so that's cool too. A lot of big news all around. Meta admitted to scraping every Australian user's account to train its AI. That's fun. And this came, let me see here. Meta's global privacy director, Melinda Claybaugh, was asked by Australian politicians about this directly, and she initially denied it, and they kept pressing her. She was like, okay, yeah. We had all your photo. We have all your stuff. Even if they weren't scraping stuff from minors, but if somebody over 18 posted stuff featuring a minor, that stuff would be brought in too. Australia was talking about like, why don't we have the privacy protections that the EU ultimately had to have, and I believe that they added to the US as well, the ability to opt out, and that is not available for Australia. But I think basically because Australian law doesn't require it, so they're like, well, we don't have to give it to you, therefore it's okay. I don't know. How do you feel about that one, Cherlynn?
Sadly, I didn't have the bandwidth or the time to feel about that one. I think though with Meta, we also should shout out that Meta Connect is happening soon.
Meta Connect is happening soon. We are gearing up for that story, but just another shitty thing that Meta does. And like, it's one of those things, like all these companies are stealing data to train their AIs, and they're all getting, basically a lot of crap for it. This is particularly bad because it's like, it's not just media that's being created by artists or something. This is personal data. So just gross. Related to that, Australia's Prime Minister wants to ban social media for children, and hasn't determined an age limit, but he would estimate between 14 and 16. Facebook for the longest time wouldn't let you make an account if you were under 13. And I think a lot of privacy, I think for some laws, for some data security laws, that was like the main cutoff, but we do not have a nationwide privacy law. And I feel like this doesn't seem unreasonable to me, to basically not allow for social media under a certain age, because we know what the damage social media has brought to a whole generation of teenagers and young adults. Like, thoughts, Cherlynn, feelings? Or do you think it's bad to ban kids from internet things?
No, as in I don't think we should ban kids from internet things. I think they're going to find a way somehow.
Sure.
There's a lot of ways to get through these age restrictions. Being a rebellious teenager, I should know, or having been one. So I don't know how it'll work. We've talked about this a lot of times in various different countries, or like attempts to establish some kind of rule like that. And the same question lingers: how are you going to enforce it?
It is a good question. And it is something we should be thinking about, because we've spent the past decade talking about like how social media has really hurt kids, and how there's been little oversight for social media companies from the government. So now we're having both the outcome of AI and social media happening all at the same time. Whole thing. Real quick, we also want to mention that the Polaris Dawn astronauts from that SpaceX flight, they have successfully performed a commercial spacewalk that includes a billionaire. I'm seeing here Jared Isaacman and Sarah Gillis, the SpaceX engineer, both completed that early on September 12th. So that was right this morning, using those cool new SpaceX suits. What's interesting here is that the ship has no airlock. So for them to get out, they had to like eject all the air out. So everybody had to be wearing the new SpaceX suits. it worked. They didn't die. They didn't jettison off into the death of space. So it's all good there. I'm sure we'll be writing more about that stuff too, folks. Quickly around Engadget, Billy reviewed the Ultimate Ears Everboom, which is their like floating waterproof speaker. But yeah, and also, Cherlynn, I know you want to talk about the Pixel Watch 3 real quick. How was that?
Yeah, it was really fun to write this entire review on the way to the Apple event. But yeah,
sure.
It's a good device. I think it feels good. I think the one thing that they really got right this year was battery life, which I think I read the Reddit post that people posted my story too. And people were like, wait, 1.5 days is good battery. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. That we've been so gaslit by Google to be like, oh my God. No, but they finally got to a point where the battery life is very similar to the Apple Watch Series 9 and their charging speed too. So then with the Apple Watch Series 10, which was announced the day the embargo went live, thank you a lot, Google. We still have to like maybe think about the comparison there. So all I want to say is the review's up. Go read it. Is another sort of me and Sam kind of tag team. Sam wore the 45mm model, which is larger. We have a new size for once. There's a lot of things I was able to test out, go into the review and read there.
Cool. All right. I know you get a drop share. Feel free to head out, drop your audio, and I will just finish up the episode with you, Ben, okay?
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Okay. I'll just do these final bits, Ben. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to shout out a story from iFixit. Or actually, let me just say, no, it's fine. We don't have to like put Cherlynn off of that. I'll talk about her at the end. I want to quickly shout out the story from Dan about iFixit 2. iFixit has released a soldering iron. It's called the Fix Hub. It is a USB-C chargeable soldering iron. It could help fix whatever's on your workbench. It's also super fixable on its own too. I've owned soldering irons before. I've played around with this stuff. I haven't needed to delve too much into it, but this thing looks really cool. It seems like the sort of thing that would be nifty to have on hand if you ever need to repair any of your devices. So there's that. Moving on to picks real quick. Cherlynn, let me do this. Moving on to picks this week. Cherlynn had to run to go to some meetings, but I've got a pick for you guys. Red Rooms, which is a Canadian film set in Montreal. It's a French language film directed and written by Pascal Plante. It is, I think, something that would be very up the Engadget audience. This is essentially a serial killer story about a guy who's brutally killed three young girls. But what it's really about is sort of our obsession with true crime, and also it's true crime and the way it's very easy to be always online these days too, and the way like our lives are often lived through screens reflected back at us. The central character in this story is sort of like a Lisbeth Salander type. It's somebody we're introduced to at the beginning of the movie who's attending the court trial, is clearly kind of maybe even obsessed with the case, but they're also they're a model. They're an elite computer hacker. They're a very inexplicable person. And you spend the entire movie trying to figure out like what this person is up to and why she's so obsessed with everything. I think it leads to a really surprising conclusion. It's a techno thriller, like so many others. Like I think it's a pretty solid techno thriller. Really well shot, incredibly well acted by the lead actor, Juliette Gariepy. And I just think it's fantastic. It's in theaters now. It'll likely be on streaming soon. It's called Red Room. So check it out if you want some. It's scary. It's a little brutal. It's never as violent as it should be, or you'd expect from a movie like this. But I think it is well worth a watch. Let me just drink some water here. Ben, could you actually wrap us? Can you do the wrapping bit?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Well, good. You could just say you're jumping in.
Yeah. So, producer Ben jumping in for the very end. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our former managing editor, Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by me, Ben Ellman. You can find Devindra online at
Devindra on Twitter, Threads, all over the place, Blue Sky, was it Mastodon too, and a podcast about movies and TV at the Filmcast at thefilmcast.com.
You can find me, Ben, nowhere. Don't at me. If you want to email us at podcast@engadget.com. Maybe that's where you can find me. Leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on anything that gets podcasts. That includes Spotify.
Thanks, folks. We're out. All right. Hello, chat. Hello.
Yeah, this episode is...
It's going to be all over the place. Sorry, Ben.
A little all over the place. I'm going to have fun editing it. That's not a problem for me. But this is what happens when everybody like is just getting home from like a big event.
The whole big event.
Inside the same week.
Yeah. And we're all like a little tired and overworked from the event too.
Yep.
All those things. Mark Dell, like, yes, I do think actually people would be interested in techno thrillers. How big is SVU? How big is all of the Law and Order shows? It's all those things.
True.
Download the podcast, folks, and you can hear it in its correct order. And I see people who are coming on late. Tosi Pierre, sorry you missed it, but you can always watch the rerun.
Yeah, watch the rerun or listen to the show it's going to be out late Thursday usually, and it'll be in the correct order. So
thanks to Ben's hard work.
Yeah, we had to do things a little bit out of order because one person was only available for a little bit of time, and then Cherlynn had to drop off because she had other meetings and was also just very tired because I think she got home wee hours this morning.
Wee hours of the night. All right. Well, this was a fun stream. I'm glad we got to talk about Apple stuff. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Ben. And I think you can run the credits.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. So camera switching done a little lazily by me. OBS stuff is done by Devindra. And chat, you make us smarter every time. You remember stuff that we forget. You really help when we have camera problems or audio problems or anything. So thank you for sticking around. If you're watching this, why not download the podcast too?
Yeah, why not?
It'll be good for the numbers and everything. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, folks. We're out.